And welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and I have an interesting video for you guys today. So I have a Patreon. On my Patreon, I have a Discord, and on my Discord, we got a channel called Custom Cards where my patrons can post their own creations for, you know, other people to sort of evaluate, possibly for me to critique a little bit. And that's what I'm going to be doing here today. Unbeknownst to my patrons, actually, they don't actually know I'm making this video. I went through that channel, I picked out a few really interesting ones, and I'm actually going to critique them here on my channel. So let's have a look. First up, from Blackened Voodoo, we have Narics the Stormbrewer, 3 blue and a red human wizard, 1/3. It's a legendary creature, so it's a commander, of course. Has the Eminence ability. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may pay X, where X is that spell's mana cost. If you do, it gains Storm. Oh boy. Okay, and you can pay blue and a red and tap. Target instant or sorcery spell in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. When you cast this spell this turn, draw a card. This guy's doing a lot. Is he doing too much? So let's say we cast a lightning bolt, all right? We cast a lightning bolt. We're going to cast an instant, and we may pay X, where X is the spell's mana value. If you do, it gains Storm. So I'm going to cast my lightning bolt, and I'm going to pay 1 extra, and it's going to gain Storm. So that seems pretty good. Obviously, you're going to want a lot of low-costed stuff in here because being able to pay the spell's cost over again, like an Expropriate's not going to be great here, obviously. I mean, if you could pull it off, it would be great. It's a lot of mana to have to pay twice. Also, though, you have that other ability, giving your stuff flashback. When you cast this spell this turn, draw a card, I think is maybe going a bit much. I think that's too much to put on here. There's already a lot going on here. You have a lot of benefits. You have the Storm ability and you have the flashback ability. I don't think the draw card is necessary. I think that's just too much. Although 5 mana, you know, that's kind of a lot. It is a tap ability, so you're probably not going to be able to use it right away. Interesting. Is it too powerful? That's sort of the thing when you make custom cards is maybe you don't think of a lot of things that are taken into consideration, and it's good to have someone else look at it and go, you could do this, you could do that. And obviously you guys can comment below why you think this might be too much or some of the broken things you could do with it. Instant or sorcery spell, and you can storm them and you can flashback them. That's, I mean, obviously the two best things you could probably do with instants and sorceries is storm and flashback. So having that on one commander, and especially the fact that you have that eminence ability where you actually don't even need to cast your commander at all. So you can just have your commander in the command zone and be storming off with this fairly easily. Might be a little too powerful. Next up, we got a non-legendary card. This one is from Caden, Fields of the Reiki. Blue, 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 blue. So 4 blue mana, so you're probably not going to play this outside of a mono blue deck. You could. It's a world enchantment. I love it. Activated abilities of permanents that aren't mana abilities have split second. So obviously that means as long as the ability is on the stack, players can't cast or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. So basically your opponents won't be able to respond to your activated abilities of permanents. So that's interesting. Not sure exactly where you would use this. I'm not sure if there's a specific reason he made it all blue mana like that. Is there a specific commander this would work with? Maybe an Arcanist, because you can tap and your opponents can't respond when you draw the 3 cards. It's an interesting one for sure. I definitely don't think it's too powerful. Not at all, especially with that casting cost. And it's a world enchantment. And for those who don't know, that means that if someone else plays a world enchantment, this one's going to go away. So that's a downside as well. An interesting thing you could do here is you could sort of use activated abilities to protect what you're doing a little bit. So you could do something and then hold priority and activate an ability of a permanent you control. So that then allows your opponents to not respond to that. But then I guess they could just wait till it resolves and then respond again. Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. I definitely think it's a card that could get used, and I definitely don't think it's too powerful. Next up, Tomafy has Shivath of the Gitu, 1, a blue, a red, and a white, human wizard 2/2 with vigilance. It's a legendary creature, so it's a Jeskai commander. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 1. If you do, you may add or remove a time counter from a permanent or a suspended card. Interesting. Obviously, we know where we're using this, right? We're going to use a lot of suspend here. We're going to use a lot of cards that there's lots of permanents that use time counters as well. Adding time counters is the interesting one here, right? Because you can use like vanishing, stuff like that, that uses time counters. At the beginning of each upkeep, you may pay 1. So you can do this on your opponent's turns as well. So if I put a really expensive suspend card in suspend, obviously I would want to put like Joyra in this deck so that I can suspend stuff and then use this ability to get that stuff out faster. That's pretty powerful, right? I could suspend something like an Eldrazi with, I think, only 4 time counters on it. And then by the time I get around to my next turn, I will have it in play already. So that's pretty good. Maybe too good. I really like the, you can add counters to permanents you control. That's the more interesting way to go with it, rather than just I suspend really expensive stuff and then just cheat it out faster. I really like the idea of I have time counters on stuff that I both want to remove and add time counters to, like that. There's the Chronozoa, which is one that has, I think, vanishing and does the time counters, and you want to be removing time counters from it. There's that white guy, the Oromancers or something, that when the time counters are removed, you get to go get an enchantment out of your deck. Stuff like that, I think, would make a much more interesting build here for sure. Next up from C, we have Morophon, Locus of Mimicry. So another Morophon iteration here. Coswuberg, though. This one doesn't cost colorless. You actually got to pay the white, blue, black, red, and green. Of course, it's a legendary creature shapeshifter. 4/5. Whenever you cast your first creature spell with Changeling each turn, you may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of another creature you control. Well, that's pretty good. Each non-token creature you control gets -1/-1 for each creature you control with the same name as it. Okay, I like that. Because now you are giving... There's a downside to what you're doing, right? You can't just go completely crazy with copying stuff. I like that. I like that they reined in the ability there a little bit with that second ability, right? Because if you copy something, if you cast like a Rite of Replication and you make 5 copies of something, now it's going to get -1/-1 for each creature with the same name. So they're all going to get like -5/-5 or -6/-6, right? So it's probably going to kill them all. If it's a bunch of sad robots, that's probably not going to be a bad thing. Nevertheless, I like that there is that limitation there where you can't just completely go nuts. It's interesting. Obviously, it's going to be Changeling Tribal. There's a lot you can do there. I like it. I think this is actually better than the original Morophon. I mean, obviously the original Morophon is doing something sort of a lot different. It's doing, choose your own tribe theme. This is, I think, specifically Changeling Tribal, but you could also do, because you're doing Changelings, a lot of tribal stuff as well. You could do Omni Tribal in this deck. So you're having those Changeling enter as the copy of another creature you control. So you also do need creatures that you're going to be copying. You can't just put a bunch of Changelings in this deck, or else there maybe won't be anything good to copy. So you do need, some Eternal Witnesses maybe, or something like that you can actually copy with those Changelings too. Very interesting. I like it. Next up from Izzy, we got Enchanted Cake Display, and this is a funny one. 5 mana, legendary enchantment artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a cake token for each cake token you control, which is a colorless artifact token with pay 2 and tap. Sacrifice this artifact, you gain 3 life. If you don't control a cake token, create one. Then if you control 60 or more cake tokens, you lose the game. So the flavor here is kind of funny, because if you make too many cake tokens, you lose the game, which maybe means you're eating too much cake and then you die. I don't know. It's kind of funny. It's a funny one that I thought I would throw in here. I just don't know if the wording is correct, because at the beginning of your upkeep, create a cake token for each cake token you control. But how do you get the ball rolling, right? I guess if you don't control a cake token, create one. Okay, so at the beginning of your upkeep, if you don't control a cake token, you create one. And if you create one, you're going to create another one. And if you create 2, you're going to create 2. So that's pretty interesting. I mean, the whole Enchanted Cake Display, like, it's funny, but this could be a real card, right? This could be, I mean, if you take sort of the goofiness out of it, this actually could be a really interesting card because you can keep cranking out those cake tokens, and then, they just crack to gain 3 life. They're food tokens, essentially, right? So this could just be, at the beginning of your upkeep, create a food token, and then if you control a food token, you create another food token, something like that, right? This doesn't actually have to be cakes, obviously. It could just be a food token. I think then if you control 60 or more cake tokens, you lose the game. I think it should be like 10, like 60. You're never going to get there. I think like 10. That way it's going to make it a little bit, you have to be a little more careful with what you're doing. And, it could be good in a life gain theme. It could be good in an artifact theme where you just want to sacrifice those artifact tokens to other effects. Next up from I've Earned It, we got Protoform X, 2 blue and a black legendary creature, Slime Horror. So another commander. It's a 2/3 and has hatred. And that's why I threw this one in here, is because this is a really interesting ability that they created, obviously. This creature cannot be the target of spells or abilities you control. So it is the opposite of hexproof. And obviously that's a bad thing. This is not a thing. I mean, I guess there might be some way to take advantage of that. I don't know. But it's a bad thing. And I like abilities like that. Like upkeep. Creatures used to have, at the beginning of your upkeep, you have to pay an amount or sacrifice them. They got rid of that. I like having downsides on your stuff because then it makes it possible for you to make it even better, right? When a creature has a downside to it, that allows you to give it some more upside, right? So the upside is Protoform X has all activated abilities of all creatures in all graveyards. So it is a Necrotic Ooze, essentially. And obviously Necrotic Ooze is a very powerful creature that you can do a lot of really crazy combos with. Having this in the command zone, obviously you could go nuts with it. Probably a lot of crazy things you could do here. And that's why it has the hatred on it, which I like. Again, I like, if you're going to make a really powerful ability, give a little bit of a downside as well. Just like with the Morophon, I like that. So you can't target your commander, right? Which means you can't put boots on it, right? It's going to be really hard to protect it. Any of the slingshot effects in black that'll bring it back from the graveyard won't work. Yeah, I like that has that drawback because the ability there is really, really powerful. Maybe too powerful? I don't know. Interesting, though. I like the build. Next up from Imp, we have Duma Margrave of Votia. 2 red, Orc Noble 4/2. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, gain control of one target basic land that player controls until end of turn. Untap those lands. Oh boy. Okay, pay 4 and tap. Create a treasure token for each basic land type among lands you control. Is this too good? I mean, it's 1 or more, so that's good. If it was just whenever a creature you control deals combat damage, that would be busted. So you're only going to be able to deal combat damage to a player. So if you attack, and I don't know if they worded it this way on purpose, if you attack 3 different players, you'll be able to gain control of a land of each of them. Now, that might sound really, really good. It's not the easiest thing in the world. You are in mono red here. I'm wondering if non-basic land is a better choice here. I know non-basic land would seem, first of all, going after non-basic lands is a very red thing to do. So that flavor-wise, I think fits. I know people will say, oh, well, non-basic land is too good. That's better because now you can grab those Cabal Coffers and those, Gaia's Cradles and stuff. Sure, but also, you're going to run out a lot faster. If you go after non-basic lands, it's going to, I think if you go after basic lands, you're always going to have targets, probably. It's going to hate on the decks that have less colors, which I don't love. So, there could be decks that are just playing basic lands and you won't be able to get anything off of them. I think I would rather see this be gain control of a non-basic land, maybe. You're only gaining control until end of turn, though, right? You're untapping them so you can use them on your second main phase. Yeah, very interesting. And then you create a treasure token for each basic land type among lands you control. Okay, so obviously the second ability doesn't work with the non-basic thing, so I guess you'd have to leave it basic. Yeah, okay, we'll leave it basic, I guess. Create a treasure token. So if you manage to get, you're not going to get all 5. You're going to be mono red, and you can get maximum 3 lands on your attack. So you can get 3 other lands. So the maximum amount of lands you can get here, I think, is 4. Because you can only gain control of basic lands. So that means you're only going to get 1 land type from each one. So I'm pretty sure you're not going to be able to get all 5 land types on a turn with this. Your opponents are going to get them back. The lands you gain control of, you can obviously use those to activate your commander's ability and create those treasure tokens. Pretty interesting. Yeah, I think I'm coming around on this one. It's in mono red. Whenever something is really limited to a certain color, that to me makes it a lot more viable because you're very restricted on what you can do with it, obviously, right? Also love the Fallen Empires logo. The choices they had for the set symbols are very interesting. He decided to go with Fallen Empires here for whatever reason. Next up, we got Ed and Mayu, and he has Andrarch Etharch Zoologist, 1, a white and a blue. Human Artificer 2/3. It's a legendary creature, so it is a commander, and I will just say he has this deck, okay? I actually played against it. He said, hey guys, I got a custom commander. Can I play it in a game? And I was like, sure, yeah, nobody cared. So he had his custom, this commander he actually played in a game against me. It was pretty interesting. So whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get an energy counter. So it is an energy commander, and it has black, red, and a green. Create 2 1/1 gremlin creature tokens. So it is a 5-color commander, right? Because it has the white-blue color identity for itself, and then obviously the ability that makes it a 5-color commander, which I think is fine if you're just doing energy. Energy does not have a ton of support. And I'll just say, he didn't win that game. It is tough. Even with a custom commander like this, an energy deck is really tough to do. You can obviously create those gremlin tokens, which when they enter the battlefield, you get energy. I know a lot of people will look at this and go, oh, that's way too good. You can use that, create gremlin ability over and over and over again. Yeah, but you need a black, red, and a green, right? And in a 5-color deck, it's going to be really difficult to do that more than once in a turn, right? And then, the payoff is not, like, getting energy is good, but there's not a huge payoff there. So I think this is definitely a very fair commander, and I've played against it. So I think my critique of it is definitely accurate. Next up, we got Dura. And Dura has made a very interesting commander here with a very interesting border. I'm not sure where he got it from. Okard Conjure, it says on the bottom. So Zed, the Master of Shadows, 3 black, black, black. Human Ninja, again, a legendary creature. And it's a 2/3, and it has that Commander Ninjutsu, which everybody loves so much. Black, black, black. So it's not as easy to get it out. Of course, you are in a mono black deck. The fact that it costs 6 probably doesn't mean anything because you're almost always going to use the Commander Ninjutsu. When Zed, the Master of Shadows, deals combat damage to a player, create a black Shadow Ninja creature token with Zed, the Master of Shadows, power and toughness. That's very interesting. So it's a 2/3. So when it deals combat damage, you ninjutsu it in, which probably won't be that hard. Just put an Ornithopter there. Everyone's seen this from the Yuriko decks, obviously. It's not hard to get those. It would be a little bit harder without the blue, because blue has a lot of unblockable creatures. But, you got that Ornithopter, whatever. You cheat this guy in for 3 mana, and you're going to get a 2/3 Black Shadow Ninja creature token. That's not bad. Obviously, if you buff your commander, it'll get bigger, right? So I already like the different directions you can go here with this. It's going to be a little bit of a Voltron deck for sure. But then again, with the ninjutsu, right? That can get tough with the whole equipment thing. If you ninjutsu something in, you can't attach a Sword of Vengeance to it, right? Hero's Blade is going to, I think it's called Hero's Blade, is going to be a perfect fit here because that automatically attaches to your legendary creatures. At the end of your turn, if Zed, the Master of Shadows, attacked, each opponent loses 1 life. Oh, okay. Okay, so just a little note on editing here. At the end of your turn, if Zed, the Master of Shadows, attacked, comma. So you need the comma in there so that it doesn't run the ability together. Each opponent so if your commander attacked, each opponent loses life equal to the amount of damage they took this turn. That's really good. Each opponent loses life equal to the amount of damage they took this turn. So all you have to do is have your command. Again, though, and I like this, man, he did a really good job with this. If you ninjutsu in your commander, it hasn't attacked this turn because it hasn't been declared as an attacker. So this ability won't actually trigger, right? Also, it should be at the beginning of each end step. So I'm giving some pointers on, creating custom cards as well, sort of the rules of it and whatnot. At the beginning of your end step, it should say, if Master of Shadows attacked, each opponent loses life equal to the amount of damage they took this turn. So if you ninjutsu your commander in, it will not have attacked, right? It's already attacking. An attack trigger only happens if you declare it as an attacker. So you won't actually get that unless the following turn you then attack with your commander and don't use the ninjutsu. I really like that. If Zed, the Master of Shadows, leaves the battlefield, exile all Shadow Ninja tokens. Again, I like that. It holds you back from going off. I like the downside there. I really like this one. This is a great design. Really interesting. I would maybe make a few adjustments there, but I like this one a lot. Great job. Next up, we got one from Dan, and it is not a legendary creature. War Games, 5 red and a white. So Boros Enchantment. Enchant World. And it should be World Enchantment. So it's not an Enchant World is not a card type. A World Enchantment is a card type. Just saying. When War Games enters the battlefield, each player chooses power or glory. Each player's creatures are 1/2 white human soldiers if they choose glory, or are 2/1 red goblin soldiers if they choose power. All artifacts are 0/3 walls with defender. End this effect when War Games leaves play. Whew. So again, the wording there might be a little off. I think you want to say this effect ends when War Games leaves play, something like that, or leaves the battlefield, obviously. Nevertheless, I don't want to be too nitpicky about the wording. Man, this is a really interesting one. It's 7 mana, and it's in Boros. So each player is going to choose power or glory, and if they choose glory, so why would they want their creatures to be 1/2 white human soldier creature tokens when they can get 2/1 red goblin soldier? Like, I guess if they're playing human tribal or something, I think everyone would probably just choose goblin though, right? Maybe you should give the humans first strike so there's an advantage to them. Because if everyone chooses goblins and you choose humans, and yours have first strike, they're going to win the battle, right? Because obviously if the 2/1 and the 1/2 connect, they kill each other. But if you have first strike, like the downside of having the 1 power, you should give an upside there maybe. I think first strike, having the humans have first strike, I think would be maybe a little more interesting here. All artifacts are 0/3 walls with defender, and you have to put in there probably in addition to their other types maybe. All artifacts are 0/3 walls with defender. Yeah, like the wording here, I think there would have to be a little bit more wording here. That is an interesting one too, right? Because obviously your artifacts could turn into 0/3 walls, which can then block the goblins and the humans. Very interesting. I like it. This is a really tough one to evaluate. Obviously, turning everyone's artifacts into creatures means you can kill them very easily, right? With a board wipe. So that could be, I mean, could this card be too powerful? Because what you could do is just cast this and then cast like Anger of the Gods and exile everything. All the creatures, all the artifacts would get exiled if you did that. So that might be too good. I don't know. Also, so if I did that, then this is sitting in play. Each player's creatures are 1/2 white human soldier creatures if they choose glory. So that means if they play a new creature, that creature will be the chosen type, I assume. Or if they play, so after a board wipe has happened, any new creature or artifact that comes out will be affected by this. It's a very powerful effect. Yeah. It's an interesting one. It's tough to evaluate. I think it's good. I think it's pretty good. Again, the only thing is, I'm just thinking, unless your opponent's playing human tribal or you are, why choose the human soldier token unless you have, again, I think first strike, the humans having first strike might be a little more balanced or interesting. So next up, we got another one from Caden, and it's Arna Kenurud Sky Knight. 2 white and a green human knight. 2/2. It's a legendary creature, so another commander has flying and flanking. Yes, everyone has been waiting for a new commander to have flanking on it, I'm sure. And has creatures you control with flanking have provoke. Very interesting. So you took 2 very old, very underused abilities and combined them onto a commander. Very nice. So flanking, of course, means that if that creature gets blocked, he's got it on here. Whenever a creature without flanking blocks this creature, the blocking creature gets -1/-1 till end of turn. That's actually a pretty interesting ability because you can actually kill those creatures before any damage is dealt. So if I attack with a creature and my opponent blocks with a 1/1 with Death Touch, that creature is, as soon as it's declared as a blocker, will get -1/-1, so it'll die, and I don't have to worry about my creature dying. So it's actually not a bad ability. Provoke is a great ability. So creatures you control with flanking have provoke. The question is, obviously, how many white-green creatures have flanking? I don't know if any green ones do. There's definitely a few white ones. So is this is this viable? That would be my only question. I think it's definitely fair. It's definitely interesting. Obviously, your commander is going to have provoke, which the fact that you gave it flying might be a downside, because provoke is you want your creature to be blocked. So again, I talked about this with the my video about how Chromium has Rampage and flying, and with Rampage, what video was that? That was my commanders that are really hard to build around video. An ability where you want your creature to be blocked and an evasion ability of like flying is kind of not a great match. I don't know if you decided to do that just because of the art you found, or it's a Sky Knight, I guess, but it almost might be better if your commander didn't have flying, because then you could every turn, because that ability, the flanking matched with the provoke, is really good. You could use that a lot. You could be knocking off your opponent's creatures because you're forcing them to block, but if they don't have flying, you can't force them to block. So that actually is almost a bit of a nombo there a little bit. Definitely a fair commander, and I think, again, my only concern is, are there actually enough flanking creatures to make this deck viable? You could just use your commander and go straight Voltron. It'd be nice to have some more flanking creatures in there, and I'd be interested to know how many more there are. Next up, Danzig, and he decided to go with the old school border here. Blezar Saxor the Alchemist, 3 blue, a black, and a green. Legendary creature, giant wizard, so a Sultai commander. It's a 6/4, has lifelink and trample. So that's a pretty good Voltron commander right out of the gate. Once per turn, you may cast an instant card from your graveyard only if the spell targets Blezar Saskor the Alchemist. So definitely a Voltron commander. If that spell would go to the graveyard this turn, remove it from the game instead. So once per turn, you get a Kess trigger, right? Essentially, but only if it targets Blezar Saskor. So yeah, pretty self-explanatory, I think. You just want it's interesting, a Sultai deck doing this. Also, a Sultai commander with lifelink is something I don't think we've ever seen before. Like I might get rid of the lifelink. No, Death Touch would be too good here with the trample. I might swap out the lifelink for something else though, like Menace maybe, or something. Menace and trample is really good too though. You know, I like this because it's a Voltron strategy, but in instant form. You want to be casting instants on your commander. Equipment, you could do equipments and auras. Those are the typical themes, right? So I like that you are going away from the typical, Voltron is typically auras and equipment. Here, you want to be using instants in your Voltron strategy, which is very, very interesting. Very interesting, no question. Obviously, that card, I can't remember off the top of my head, but that green enchantment, whenever you cast a spell that targets a creature you control, you get to draw a card. That would go in this deck for sure. I don't think this is overpowered. It's 6 mana. Yeah, no, I think this is a totally fair card, totally fair commander. I would have no problem playing against it. And lastly, we have another one from Dan, and I saved this one from last because it is a very interesting idea, and it will, I would imagine, invoke a lot of discussion. Odorin Addled Mind. 2 blue and a black, legendary creature, human wizard, 1/3. Spells and abilities you control that target an opponent may target you instead. Also, though, all instances of may on spells and abilities opponents control are replaced with may not. So there's 2 things here that are just really tough to evaluate without actually looking at a lot of cards, right? So spells and abilities you control that target an opponent may target you instead. So a spell that says target opponent does this, target opponent that does that, you may target yourself instead. Now, usually that's a bad thing. So I can't think of anything too ridiculous off the top of my head. I'm sure there's something out there. Like usually when you target your opponent with something, it's a bad thing. Like target opponent sacrifices a creature, right? Why would you want to do that on yourself? However, there might be something. I don't know if he's thinking of a particular card here. All instances of may on spells and abilities opponents control are replaced with may not. There must be a specific card he's thinking of here, because a may is a may. A may is already may not, right? Because may means you can do it if you want to, or you can choose to not do it. So doesn't may and may not, aren't they sort of ambiguous? Don't they just do the same thing? I don't like, I'd have to find some actual cards. And this is why I mentioned this one for sure on this video. I just wanted, all my viewers to go, okay, well, what are some crazy, interesting interactions that you could use with this guy? Because I can't really think of any. For both of those abilities, I can't think of any cards that you would want to do here. I mean, it would make the game a little more interesting, maybe. Again, I just don't know if the may and may not, swapping out may and may not, I don't know if that actually would do anything, because it's already an option for you if it says may. So this is a really interesting one. That's why I saved it till last. Invoke the discussion, right? I mean, let me know in the comments below if you guys can think of some interesting interactions with spells and abilities that either of these abilities would sort of interact in an interesting way with, or actually even really do anything. Obviously, you could put stuff in your deck that would target your opponents, and then you could target yourself with it. But I can't think of anything where you would actually want to do that, because usually that's a bad thing, right? I mean, Secret Rendezvous, because then you could draw all the cards, but that's a white card, maybe. Something like that. That's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head. So yeah, you guys let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of these cards. Some really interesting creations from my patrons. And if you're interested in joining in on all of the discussion and all the fun and all the custom card creation, my Patreon link is in the description below. Give it a click. Come join my Discord and get in on the action. But that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.